Preserve Officer Cole's body camera. Lieutenant General Holloway's detention is now under federal review. The order came through the station telephone at 6:47 p.m. and every voice in the operations room faded into silence. Sergeant Luis Bennett stood behind the desk with the receiver pressed to his ear, staring across the room at Officer Nathan Cole. Nathan remained beside a computer terminal, his unfinished report glowing on the screen. Through the glass wall of the waiting area, Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway sat upright in a metal chair, his dark sport coat folded neatly beside him. He did not look angry. He looked patient in the way only someone with great discipline could look patient after being denied the truth for 3 hours. The woman on the telephone identified herself as Helen Price, a Department of Defense duty officer coordinating with Marcus's command. General Holloway was scheduled to arrive at a secure installation this afternoon, she said. His military status, rank, vehicle registration, and travel schedule were confirmed before he was transported to your station. Why is he still being held? Luis looked at Nathan. What exactly happened on that highway? Nathan straightened his uniform. The driver extended the stop by refusing direct instructions and providing questionable military credentials. Officer Melissa Grant stood near the evidence counter with her body camera still attached. She looked at Nathan, then at the printed verification record in her hand. The credentials were confirmed, she said. Nathan did not turn toward her. After he became uncooperative, Marcus heard the exchange through the glass. He raised his voice only enough to be understood. I followed every lawful instruction. What changed was Officer Cole's explanation. Luis covered the receiver. Nathan, did you begin this stop because of a traffic violation? A partially obstructed taillight. Was the vehicle stolen? No. Was the license invalid? No. Was there a warrant? Nathan paused. No. Luis glanced at Melissa. She placed the verification sheet on the desk. Valid driver's license. Current registration. Active insurance. No warrants. Active duty military status. Rank confirmed as Lieutenant General. Approved travel schedule. Every line removed another reason for the detention, yet Marcus had still been brought to the station. Helen's voice returned through the receiver. Preserve the patrol camera, both body cameras, dispatch recordings, and any civilian video collected at the scene. Do not alter the original report. Nathan looked at the words on his computer screen. He had written that Marcus appeared evasive, that the vehicle ownership was uncertain, and that the military identification could not be verified. Now the verification record sat less than 2 feet away. Melissa lowered her voice. The roadside video will show when everything matched. Nathan looked toward her. Rank does not place anyone above the law. Marcus stood behind the glass and faced him. Correct. It also does not place you above procedure. The room became still again. Nathan had believed 3 hours would give him enough time to prove his suspicion. Instead, every minute had created another record of what he refused to accept. At 3:42 p.m. the same afternoon, Marcus had been driving along a rain-darkened Virginia highway toward a secure defense meeting when flashing lights appeared in his rearview mirror. The reason for the stop was small. What Nathan chose to make of it would not be. At 3:42 p.m., Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway saw the patrol lights appear in his rearview mirror as he traveled east along a rain-darkened Virginia highway. The storm had passed less than an hour earlier, leaving the pavement glossy and the shoulders soft with standing water. Marcus checked his speed, activated his hazard lights, and reduced the black sport utility vehicle to 20 miles per hour while searching for a safe place to stop. The nearest shoulder was narrow and bordered by a drainage ditch, so he continued another 300 feet toward the wide entrance of a gas station. Behind him, Officer Nathan Cole interpreted the careful movement as hesitation. Marcus turned into the well-lit lot, stopped beside an empty row of parking spaces, lowered the window, switched off the engine, and placed both hands on the steering wheel. His movements were deliberate, shaped by more than 30 years of military discipline and by a lifetime of understanding how quickly another person could misread calmness in a black man. Nathan stepped from the patrol car and approached along the driver's side, one hand near his radio. His body camera recorded Marcus waiting with his license already visible between 2 fingers. Why did it take you so long to stop? Nathan asked. The shoulder was unsafe, Marcus replied. I continued to the first wide, illuminated area. Nathan looked back toward the highway. You passed a place where you could have pulled over. There was a ditch beside it and limited visibility after the rain. Nathan did not acknowledge the explanation. He aimed his flashlight across the interior, although daylight still filled the lot. The vehicle was clean, expensive, and equipped with a military installation access decal near the windshield. Marcus wore a pale blue dress shirt beneath a dark sport coat. A leather briefcase rested on the passenger side floor. "License and registration," Nathan said. Marcus handed over his driver's license, vehicle registration, and proof of insurance. "May I ask why I was stopped?" Nathan examined the name on the license before answering. "Your left taillight is partially covered." "Understood." Mud from the highway had dried across the lower edge of the lens. It was a minor issue, the kind normally resolved with a warning and a quick wipe. Nathan looked at the registration, then through the window at Marcus again. "Is this your vehicle?" "The registration says it is." "I asked you a question." Marcus kept his voice even. "Yes, officer. It is my vehicle." Nathan compared the address, the plate, and the identification number. Every detail matched. "Still," he asked, "how long have you had it?" Marcus paused. "Is there a concern with the registration?" "I am determining whether the vehicle belongs to you. The current registration is in my name." Nathan's expression tightened. He had begun with a taillight, but the car had already become the real subject of his attention. "Do you have any other identification?" Marcus reached slowly toward the inside pocket of his sport coat. "I have federal military identification." He removed the card and handed it over. Nathan read the rank, then looked at Marcus with open disbelief. "Lieutenant General?" "That is correct." Nathan gave a short, humorless breath. "You expect me to believe you are a 3-star general?" Marcus held his gaze. "I expect you to verify the card." Nathan returned to the patrol vehicle carrying documents that already answered every lawful question. Before he reached the driver's door, he looked back at Marcus, then at the black sport utility vehicle, as though the match between the man and everything he had earned was the most suspicious detail of all. At 3:46 p.m., Officer Nathan Cole sat inside his patrol car with Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway's documents spread across the center console. The driver's license was valid. The registration matched the black sport utility vehicle. The insurance was current. The military identification carried Marcus's photograph, full name, active duty status, and 3-star rank. Nathan entered the vehicle information into his computer. No theft report. No registration problem. No outstanding warrant. Every field returned clean. He looked through the windshield at Marcus waiting with both hands still visible on the steering wheel. The facts should have shortened the stop. Instead, they made Nathan more determined to find something the system had missed. He requested an additional records check and described the driver as possibly using fraudulent federal credentials. Dispatch asked whether there were any signs of document alteration. Nathan studied the card again. "Nothing obvious," he replied. "The claim itself is unusual." The dispatcher paused. "What claim?" "Lieutenant General." Nathan said the rank as though the words created their own suspicion. A few yards away, Marcus checked the dashboard clock. He had expected the meeting at the installation to begin in less than 40 minutes. He could see Nathan holding the military card, speaking into the radio, then examining the sport utility vehicle as though ownership could be measured by appearance. At 3:49 p.m., a second patrol car entered the gas station lot. Officer Melissa Grant stepped out and approached Nathan's vehicle. "What do you have?" she asked. Nathan handed her the military identification. "The driver says he is a 3-star general." Melissa looked at the card, then toward Marcus. "Did the system flag it?" "Not yet." "Is the vehicle stolen?" "No." "License problem?" "No." She turned the card over and examined the security features. "Then why are we still here?" Nathan lowered his voice. "Something is wrong. He is driving an expensive vehicle, carrying restricted military identification, and he refused to explain how he got the car." Melissa stared at him. "The registration explains how he got the car. It is registered to him." Nathan ignored the answer and stepped out. Melissa followed as he returned to the driver's window. Marcus remained composed. "Have you completed the verification?" he asked. Nathan held up the military card. "Where were you commissioned?" "That information does not establish whether the card is valid. It establishes whether you know what you are talking about." Marcus looked at Melissa, then back at Nathan. "You have my license, registration, insurance, and federal identification. What specific issue remains unresolved?" Nathan leaned slightly toward the open window. Your attitude. Marcus's expression changed by only a fraction. Asking why a verified traffic stop is being extended is not an attitude. Melissa shifted her weight. Nathan's body camera captured the moment he stopped discussing the taillight and began discussing Marcus himself. Step out of the vehicle, Nathan said. For what reason? Officer safety and further investigation. Marcus looked around the well-lit gas station lot. 2 patrol cars. Several witnesses. No warning from dispatch. No visible threat. I will comply, he said, but state on camera why the stop is being expanded. Nathan opened the driver's door after Marcus unlocked it. Marcus stepped onto the pavement, buttoned his sport coat, and kept his hands where both officers could see them. Across the lot, truck driver David Turner noticed the scene and raised his telephone. Nathan pointed toward the front of the sport utility vehicle. Stand over there. Marcus moved as instructed. The license matched. The registration matched. The military card matched. Nathan changed the reason. At 3:52 p.m., Marcus Holloway stood near the front of his sport utility vehicle while rainwater gathered in shallow grooves along the gas station pavement. Officer Nathan Cole remained several feet away with the general's documents in one hand and his radio in the other. Officer Melissa Grant watched from beside the second patrol car, her expression increasingly uncertain. Face the vehicle, Nathan said. Marcus complied, placing his hands lightly on the hood where they remained visible to both officers and to the body cameras recording the stop. What new information justifies this? He asked. Nathan answered without looking at him. I am confirming whether these credentials were obtained legally. The card has already matched my identity. That does not establish the story behind it. Marcus turned his head slightly. My military career is not a story. Across the parking lot, David Turner stood beside his truck with his telephone raised. Other drivers slowed as they passed the gas station entrance. The traffic stop had begun with mud covering part of a taillight. Now a black man in a dress shirt and sport coat stood beside his own vehicle while an officer questioned whether he had earned the rank printed on a verified federal card. Melissa used her department device to scan the identification number. The screen processed for several seconds, then displayed active duty status. Some fields were restricted, but the name, photograph, branch, and rank matched. She walked toward Nathan and held out the result. It confirms Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway, she said. Nathan glanced at the screen. The restricted section prevents full verification. The visible section confirms exactly what he told us. Restricted information can hide inconsistencies. Melissa lowered her voice. Or it can be restricted because he is a senior officer traveling to a secure meeting. Nathan looked toward Marcus. Where are you going? To a military installation. Which one? The location is listed on my approved schedule, and the appropriate duty office can verify it. Why will you not answer directly? Marcus removed one hand from the hood only after Melissa nodded that the movement was understood. He pointed toward the military card. Because your authority to investigate a taillight does not give you unrestricted access to protected travel information. Nathan stepped closer. You are making this more difficult than it needs to be. No, officer. I am asking you to use the information already available. At 4:01 p.m., Nathan raised his voice enough for nearby customers to hear. Do you honestly expect me to believe you are a 3-star general? The question crossed the parking lot and turned private suspicion into public humiliation. Marcus slowly faced him. His expression remained controlled, but the patience in his eyes had hardened into something more deliberate. What you believe is not the standard, he said. Verify the card. Preserve the footage. State the reason for extending this stop. David's telephone captured every word. Melissa's body camera recorded the valid identification still open on her screen. Nathan's camera recorded his own silence before he selected another explanation. Your refusal to cooperate creates an officer's safety concern. Marcus looked at the empty pavement between them. I stepped out when ordered. My hands remained visible. I provided every document requested. Identify the action that created the concern. Nathan did not answer the question. Instead, he instructed Melissa to check the vehicle identification number again and requested another dispatch review. The response came back unchanged. Vehicle registered to Marcus Holloway. Insurance active. No theft report. No alert. No warrant. Melissa turned toward Nathan. We should issue a warning for the taillight and end the stop. Nathan looked at Marcus, then at the black sport utility vehicle, unwilling to accept that both belonged exactly where the records said they did. Not yet, he said. At that moment, Marcus's telephone began ringing inside the vehicle. The dashboard screen displayed Colonel Rebecca Shaw. Marcus looked toward it. She is waiting for me at the installation. That call can verify my schedule. Nathan stepped between him and the open door. You are not answering anything until I decide what is happening here. At 4:08 p.m. The call from Colonel Rebecca Shaw ended unanswered, and the dashboard screen went dark. Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway stood beside the front of his sport utility vehicle while Officer Nathan Cole blocked access to the open driver's door. That call can verify where I am expected, Marcus said. Nathan kept his eyes on the telephone inside the vehicle. Or it can give you time to coordinate an explanation. Officer Melissa Grant stared at him. Nathan, his identity is confirmed. His rank is confirmed. The vehicle is registered to him. There is no warrant and no safety alert. Nathan turned toward her. The restricted travel information still has not been verified. Then let him answer the person calling from the installation. Nathan ignored the suggestion and reached inside the vehicle long enough to silence the telephone. Marcus watched the movement carefully. You are preventing official contact during an approved military movement. I am controlling the stop. You are extending it. The distinction was recorded by both body cameras. Across the lot, David Turner continued filming from beside his truck. The rain had stopped completely, and late afternoon sunlight reflected from the wet pavement, illuminating the entire scene with a clarity Nathan could not later claim was missing. At 4:10 p.m., Melissa contacted the military verification number printed on Marcus's card. She provided the identification code, date of birth, and department credentials. The automated system confirmed active duty status and senior officer rank, then transferred her to a duty representative for travel verification. Nathan stood close enough to hear her side of the conversation. Yes, Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway, Melissa said. Yes, he is currently detained during a traffic stop. No, there is no criminal alert associated with him. She listened, then looked at Marcus. His movement is approved. They are confirming the destination now. Nathan crossed his arms. Ask whether the identification could have been reported compromised. Melissa repeated the question. The answer came quickly. No compromise report. Identity and credentials remain valid. Marcus looked at Nathan. What remains unresolved? Nathan shifted his attention to the leather briefcase on the passenger side floor. What is inside that? Official materials. Open it. Marcus's voice stayed level. No. Nathan immediately pointed toward the refusal as though it were new evidence. There. That is the lack of cooperation I am talking about. You have not stated a legal basis to search it. Melissa ended the call and stepped closer. The duty office confirmed his rank, travel authorization, and identity. We have no probable cause to search the briefcase. Nathan lowered his voice. We do not know what he is carrying. Marcus answered. You also do not know what every other driver carries. Suspicion requires facts. At 4:16 p.m., Melissa's device displayed the final response from the military center. Name confirmed. Rank confirmed as Lieutenant General. Movement authorized. Scheduled arrival pending. She held the screen toward Nathan. He is exactly who he said he is. For the first time, Nathan's certainty flickered. No new fact supported him. Every new fact exposed how far he had moved from the original taillight warning. He looked at Marcus and said, Then you should understand how to follow instructions. Marcus faced Nathan's body camera. I followed every lawful instruction. What changed was your explanation. Nathan looked toward the passing cars, the witnesses, and the two cameras pointed at him. Ending the stop now would require admitting that it should have ended much earlier. Instead, he chose another path. You are being detained for further investigation of possible obstruction and misuse of federal credentials. Melissa's expression changed. Nathan, the credentials were verified. I heard you. Then there is nothing left to investigate. Nathan reached for his radio. Dispatch. Advise the station we are transporting one subject for additional verification. Marcus did not argue. He looked toward David's telephone, then toward Melissa's body camera. Preserve the footage, he said. All of it. Nathan heard a challenge. Melissa heard a warning. The records had cleared Marcus in minutes. Nathan decided to make the detention last for hours. At 4:21 p.m., Lieutenant General Marcus Holloway sat in the rear of Officer Nathan Cole's patrol vehicle while the gas station disappeared behind them. His hands rested calmly in his lap, and his dark sport coat remained folded beside him. Officer Melissa Grant followed in the second patrol car with Marcus's sport utility vehicle secured at the scene pending release. Nathan drove in silence, but the body camera on his uniform and the dashboard camera in the cruiser continued recording every minute of the transport. Marcus looked through the partition. "For the record, have I been arrested?" Nathan kept his eyes on the road. "You are being detained while we verify possible obstruction and misuse of federal credentials." The credentials were verified before transport. Nathan did not answer. "What action constituted obstruction?" Marcus asked. "Your refusal to cooperate with the investigation. I provided every requested document, stepped out when ordered, and allowed the military duty office to confirm my identity. I declined only an unsupported search of protected materials." Nathan glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "You keep trying to control the conversation. I am preserving the sequence." The cruiser passed wet fields and low commercial buildings as the afternoon traffic thickened. Marcus's secure telephone, now sealed inside a property bag on the front passenger seat, began ringing again. The screen displayed Colonel Rebecca Shaw. Nathan looked at it, but did not answer. Marcus spoke evenly. "Colonel Shaw is responsible for my schedule. She has now called twice. She can contact the station. She will." The certainty in Marcus's voice unsettled Nathan more than anger would have. At 4:29 p.m., Melissa radioed from behind them. "Nathan, dispatch has confirmed again that there is no alert on General Holloway, his vehicle, or his credentials. Sergeant Bennett wants to know why we are transporting." Nathan pressed the radio button. "Additional verification based on inconsistent behavior." Marcus looked toward the camera mounted near the windshield. "Please record that no specific inconsistency has been identified." Melissa's voice returned. "Nathan, I did not observe any inconsistent behavior." The radio fell silent. For the first time, Nathan was no longer controlling the account uncontested. At the station, Sergeant Luis Bennett met them near the booking area. He reviewed the documents before Marcus was moved into the glass-walled waiting room. "What is the original violation?" Luis asked. "Partially obstructed taillight," Nathan replied. "And the basis for bringing him here?" "Possible misuse of federal credentials and obstruction." Melissa entered with her body camera still active. The military center confirmed his name, rank, and approved movement at 4:16 p.m. Luis looked at the clock. "Then why was he transported after confirmation?" Nathan began to answer, but Marcus's telephone rang for a third time inside the property bag. The screen displayed the same military contact. Luis looked at it, then at Nathan. "Has anyone answered these calls?" "No." Luis picked up the bag without opening it. "Why not?" "I believe the calls could compromise the investigation." Marcus stood behind the glass. "They would have ended it." At 4:37 p.m., Luis instructed Melissa to contact the number displayed on the travel authorization. Colonel Rebecca Shaw answered immediately. Her voice carried enough urgency that Melissa moved the call to speaker. "This is Colonel Shaw. Lieutenant General Holloway failed to arrive at a secure meeting and has not responded to repeated contact attempts. Confirm his condition and location." Melissa looked toward the glass. "He is safe and currently at our station." There was a pause. "Why is a verified 3-star general being held over a taillight warning?" Nathan stepped closer. The matter expanded after he became uncooperative. Marcus faced the room. "Ask her when my identity was confirmed." Colonel Shaw answered without hesitation. "Your department received confirmation before transport. I have the timestamp." Luis slowly turned toward Nathan. The stop had begun with mud on a light. It had reached a police station because one officer refused to let verification in the story he had already chosen. At 4:42 p.m., Sergeant Luis Bennett ended the call with Colonel Rebecca Shaw and placed Marcus Holloway's verified travel record beside Nathan Cole's unfinished report. The contrast was immediate. The military record showed active duty status, 3-star rank, approved movement, and confirmation before transport. Nathan's report described uncertainty, evasive behavior, and possible credential misuse. Luis looked at Melissa Grant. "When did you confirm his identity?" At 4:16 p.m. "When did transport begin?" At 4:21 p.m. Luis turned toward Nathan. "Explain the 5 minutes between those times." Nathan folded his arms. His attitude remained concerning, and he refused to open the briefcase. Marcus stood behind the glass wall of the waiting room, his voice steady. The briefcase contained protected official materials. No search basis was stated. Melissa added, "I told Officer Cole there was no probable cause to search it." Luis looked back at Nathan. Did General Holloway make any threatening movement? No. Did he attempt to leave? No. Did dispatch identify a warrant, stolen vehicle, invalid license, or compromised credential? Nathan's answer came more quietly. No. The room held the silence that followed. Every reason had been tested. None remained. At 4:48 p.m., Luis opened the waiting room door. "General Holloway, you are free to leave. Your property will be returned immediately." Marcus stepped into the operations room without triumph. Preserve both body cameras, the patrol recording, dispatch traffic, the first version of the report, and any civilian video. Luis nodded. That has already been ordered. Nathan watched as Melissa returned the military card, driver's license, vehicle registration, insurance papers, secure telephone, and sport coat. Marcus inspected each item and signed the property receipt. His telephone displayed 4 missed calls from Colonel Shaw and 2 from the installation duty office. Before he could leave, the station's main line rang again. Luis answered, listened, and then placed the call on speaker. Helen Price identified herself as a Department of Defense duty officer coordinating the incident review. Lieutenant General Holloway's detention has been elevated because his identity and movement were confirmed before he was transported. Preserve all evidence and provide the legal basis for continuing the detention after verification. Nathan stepped toward the desk. Rank does not exempt anyone from police authority. Helen replied without hesitation. No one has suggested otherwise. The question is why your authority continued after the facts no longer supported it. Marcus looked at Nathan. That has been the question from the beginning. Luis instructed Nathan to surrender his body camera and remain off patrol pending an administrative review. Nathan stared at him. You are removing me because the Pentagon called. No, Luis said. I am removing you because the recording may show you extended a traffic stop without a lawful basis, ignored verified records, blocked official contact, and transported a driver after your stated concerns had been resolved. Melissa lowered her eyes. She had challenged Nathan, but she had still followed him to the station. I should have refused the transport, she said. Marcus turned toward her. Then make sure that is included in your statement. At 5:03 p.m., David Turner arrived with the original video from the gas station. His recording captured Nathan asking whether Marcus could afford the vehicle, questioning his rank within hearing of strangers, and changing the reason for detention after every confirmation. Luis watched the first minute, then stopped the playback. He had seen enough to understand why federal officials were asking questions. Marcus put on his sport coat and prepared to leave with Colonel Shaw, who had arrived at the station entrance. Before stepping outside, he faced Nathan one last time. The problem was never that you failed to recognize a general. The problem was that you saw a black man with valid proof and decided the proof needed your permission to become true. During the next 48 hours, the department's Internal Affairs Unit began reviewing every available record from the stop. The timeline was simple enough to understand and difficult enough to excuse. At 3:42 p.m., Nathan Cole stopped Marcus Holloway for a taillight partially covered by mud. At 3:46 p.m., the license, registration, and insurance matched. At 3:52 p.m., the vehicle was confirmed as neither stolen nor wanted. At 4:16 p.m., the Military Duty Center verified Marcus's identity, rank, and approved travel. At 4:21 p.m., Nathan transported him anyway. The body camera footage showed Marcus following each lawful instruction. The patrol camera showed no attempt to flee. Dispatch recordings showed no warning, threat, warrant, or criminal alert. David Turner's video captured the questions Nathan had not included in his report. How could Marcus afford the vehicle? Did he really expect anyone to believe he was a 3-star general? Why would someone like him possess restricted credentials? Nathan had described those questions as routine. Investigators recognized that they had nothing to do with the taillight. Melissa Grant gave her statement without attempting to protect herself. I knew the records had cleared him, she said. I kept waiting for Nathan to correct his decision. I should have ended my participation when he refused. Her honesty did not remove responsibility, but it gave the review a clearer view of how misconduct survives. One officer crosses the line. Another notices. Everyone waits for someone else to act. Sergeant Luis Bennett ordered a search of Nathan's previous traffic stops. The results revealed 4 complaints from black drivers who had been held long after their documents were confirmed. One owned a construction company and had been questioned about a new pickup truck. Another was a physician driving home from a hospital shift. A third had been asked whether a luxury sedan belonged to his employer. Each report used familiar language. Suspicious attitude. Unusual confidence. Inconsistent ownership. None of the drivers had been charged. None of the complaints had received a full camera review. Marcus learned about the pattern during a meeting with department leadership, military council, and representatives from the county. He listened quietly as officials explained the proposed response. Additional bias training. A revised traffic stop policy. Closer supervision. Marcus placed a written set of recommendations on the table. Officers would state the reason for a stop immediately. They could not expand a minor traffic investigation without identifying a new and specific factual basis. Federal and military credentials would be checked through authorized channels. Questions about income, occupation, rank, or ownership would not be used to humiliate a driver whose records already matched. Any stop lasting beyond a reasonable period after verification would trigger supervisory review. This cannot become a rule that protects generals, Marcus said. It must protect the person whose only authority is the truth. At Nathan's administrative hearing, his attorney argued that roadside decisions often required caution. The hearing officer agreed, then placed 4 images on the screen. Marcus's valid license, the current registration, the confirmed military card, the timestamp showing verification before transport. Caution explains checking, she said. It does not explain refusing the answer. Nathan looked at the evidence and finally understood that the investigation was no longer about Marcus's identity. It was about why Nathan needed that identity to remain doubtful. Outside the building, reporters waited for Marcus. He declined every interview and returned to the installation. He had spent a career making decisions where hesitation carried consequences. Now he had seen another kind of danger, a system that called delay reasonable only because the person waiting had learned how to endure it. 3 months after the administrative hearing, the county police department issued its final decision. Nathan Cole had extended a minor traffic stop without a valid factual basis, ignored confirmed records, blocked official communication, transported a driver after every stated concern had been resolved, and submitted a report that conflicted with multiple recordings. His employment was terminated following the internal review. The ruling did not depend on Marcus Holloway's rank, the attention of the Department of Defense, or the influence of military officials. It depended on the license, registration, dispatch logs, verification timestamps, body cameras, patrol footage, and civilian video Nathan had created while refusing to accept what each source showed. Melissa Grant received formal discipline for participating after she knew the detention was unsupported. She completed additional training, returned under direct supervision, and later addressed new officers about the moment hesitation becomes complicity. I thought recognizing the problem was enough, she told them. It was not. I had a duty to act before another person paid for my silence. The 4 earlier complaints involving black drivers were reopened. Each driver received a written acknowledgement that the prolonged questioning had lacked sufficient cause. The department adopted the reforms Marcus proposed. Officers were required to state the traffic violation at the beginning of a stop. A verified record could not be treated as suspicious without new evidence. Questions about salary, profession, neighborhood, or vehicle ownership could not replace legitimate investigation. Military credentials would be checked through official channels, and any detention continuing after verification required immediate supervisory approval. 6 months later, Marcus traveled along the same Virginia highway beneath a clear autumn sky. He was driving a different vehicle, an ordinary gray sedan assigned for official travel, and the route toward the installation looked almost unchanged. The gas station remained beside the highway. The parking lot still reflected sunlight after an early shower. As Marcus passed, he noticed a patrol car stopped behind an older vehicle near the wide entrance where he had once pulled over. A young black father stood beside the driver's door while an officer examined a cracked taillight. Marcus slowed with traffic, but did not stop. From his lane, he watched the officer return the license, explain the warning, and point toward a nearby repair shop. The exchange lasted only a few minutes. No additional cars arrived. No unnecessary questions were asked. The driver returned to his vehicle and continued home. Marcus kept moving toward the installation. He did not know the officer or the man who had been stopped, and neither of them knew he was watching. That was what made the moment matter. Justice was not a special response reserved for a general whose absence could reach a federal office. It was a routine procedure applied correctly when no cameras, titles, or powerful institutions were present. Nathan had spent hours questioning whether Marcus belonged inside his own vehicle, behind his own achievements, and within a rank he had earned over decades. The recordings needed only minutes to reveal whose judgment had failed. Marcus had never required Nathan's belief to make the truth real. Still, the consequences mattered because the next driver might not carry federal credentials or have a command center searching for him. The first stop lasted for hours because one officer refused to see what the evidence proved. The next ended in minutes because the system had finally learned that authority begins with restraint, and justice begins when the truth no longer has to beg to be believed.